My name's Daisy. I'm going to put on a badge that even says that. And I work for a company called Populus. And you may recognise that name because we're sometimes in the newspapers. In fact, we're sometimes in his newspaper. We do quite a lot of polling. In particular, we work for the Financial Times. So we spend a lot of time, we're the ones who interrupt you in the middle of dinner with the phone calls. You know, who are you going to vote for? Do you prefer cats or dogs? How do you feel at full moon? That kind of thing. But all we get out of those is numbers. So then after that, I get dispatched to various parts of the country to ask you why you gave the answers you did in those phone calls or online. So that's why I'm here, and that's why we want to talk to you, to understand why it is that the polls are so close here, to understand how people feel about the upcoming general election, and also because the Financial Times in particular, who are our clients today, just want to understand a bit more about how people are feeling about our political leaders at the moment, about how the campaign's going. And this isn't a quiz, promise you, there's no right or wrong answers. We just want to hear what your views are, what it feels like out there on the doorstep in the real world, and not back in Westminster where most of the people are camped. So tell us what you think. I'm going to ask a few questions, but tell us if you disagree with someone, tell us if you agree with someone. The only rule is you have to be nice. It's my only rule. And if you're quiet, I will pick on you. That's not a rule, that's just a fact. Why don't you tell us your first name, what you do for a living, and how you voted last time round?
Okay, I'm Neil. I've got a cold. So you're going to have to do something with your volume, I think. I'm a teacher, and I think I voted Conservative.
Okay, brilliant. Welcome. Thank you for joining us and for going first.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jessica.
Hello, Jessica.
I live in Hoylake, just down the road. I'm a primary school teacher, and I didn't vote last time.
Okay. New to the voting thing.
First time.
Excellent. That's even more exciting. Welcome. Thank you for coming along.
Helena, I'm a teacher, primary school teacher also, I can't quite remember, I think I voted Conservative.
Right. Well, thank you very much.
My name's Caroline.
Hi, Caroline.
I work for a national charity and I voted for Labour last time.
Wonderful. Welcome. And that means Julie has narrowly escaped doing both at once. Hello, Julie. I'm now cheating.
I'm a civil servant and I live in Upton and I voted Conservative last time.
Right, okay. I'm spotting a trend here. It's this part of the world. Hello.
Hi there, Alistair. I work as a careers advisor.
Ooh, very important. Yep.
And no more important than anybody else here. And I voted Labour last time.
Brilliant. Welcome.
Hi there, my name's Russell. I've got my own business and last time I voted Labour.
Brilliant. Now, you say you've got your own business, which just means I have to ask, what do you do?
I pet sit and I homeboard and I take photographs of dogs.
That just sounds amazing. I'm so envious
It's
right
much better than being a lecturer at university.
now. Is that what you did before you were
I was before, yes.
Right, and in this weather. Oh, that must be
Oh, it's
glorious.
marvellous.
Well, okay, Russell has the job I most want, and the rest of you all do really important things. So welcome, thank you so much for joining us. And obviously we want to talk about the election. So let's dive straight in. The general election is now just a fortnight away. Does it feel close? Are you already sick of it? Do you feel like you've heard nothing? What's going on?
Sick of it.
Sick of it already?
Yes, I
Hope it's over soon. Really?
Definitely agree.
It feels quite close, although I keep missing it because I've always got to see Leaders and I've got some I'm thinking, oh damn, I've missed that again.
Right, okay, yes. So, is that because you're getting loads of stuff through the door, or is it just because it's on telly all the time?
There's
or
a
what?
lot coming through the door. It's every day comes through the door. There are one or two, and it's the equal amounts between each party as well. Apart from UKIP, actually. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so nothing from UKIP, but you've got stuff from...
You had from UKIP today.
Did you? I've had a lot. Yeah, I've had one piece. Majority has been Conservative and Labour.
Okay.
Green Party very quiet as well, whereas they weren't in the last election.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so a bit of a change there.
I've noticed it, yeah.
I've noticed loads through the door, far more than last time round. And probably more from Conservative than Labour, although, you know, it's about 2 to 1 Conservative leaflets. I probably had at least 8 Conservative leaflets and probably about 3 Labour
Gosh.
within the last 3 weeks.
I think the Labour's just hotted up and
Has it?
taken
Right.
over.
It's
It
almost
was
tit
going
for
that way.
tatter almost
Yeah.
become, but nothing, one Liberal Democrat leaflet
Okay.
in the last 3 years.
Yeah, I'd second that, yeah.
And the same, the Conservative ones are really in your face, these big newspaper
Yeah.
things, and the Labours are just these little...
They're like newsletters, aren't
Conservatives are
they?
really,
Yeah.
Labour being sustainable.
Less paper.
Self-sustainable.
Okay. And what kinds of things are the leaflets focusing on? Or, be honest, have you got to the point where you're just putting them in the recycling? I'm assuming you're all putting them in the recycling, not the bin.
They are going into recycling. Yeah.
Are you reading them first?
I did start reading them right at the start of it, and now I've taken more of a national, so not so much on the local side. I've actually been looking more at the national news and, you know, more aware of what each day, what each day is delivering. So the leaflets, I've got fed up of getting them in the door.
So they faded out a bit.
Yeah, I think they've said all they can say in the first few that I read. So to me, I don't think there's much more that they can touch on that I haven't already heard anyway, because I've watched the debates as well.
Okay.
I agree with that entirely.
Yeah.
I'm more focused towards Newsnight and listening to
Yeah.
telly. In fact, you know, I'll channel hop.
Yeah.
There is a lot on the TV though at the moment, isn't there? Because every single
They're doing the
programme
leadership
seems to
one,
be-
aren't they? They did that UKIP yesterday.
That's right, yeah.
Didn't do himself any favours there.
No, I fell asleep.
I thought,
I like seeing that though when they start,
Yes, I
how
do.
they home in on different people as well, different people's opinions. I actually quite like to see how it affects different people, because everyone's got their own issue. So you know, it's quite informative on the TV as well. It's been, in my opinion, pretty well covered.
Yeah,
This
it's
one.
different angles, don't you, on the television?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're quite pleased how it's been covered and you're getting loads of stuff through the door. What's it saying? Back when you were still reading the leaflets, what were they focused on national issues? Was it all local issues?
I found Conservative are very local. They're very much looking at local, whereas I can't help but feel that Labour are looking at a more sort of a wider spectrum of
Okay.
issues. And I think if you just landed from the moon and you're looking, you'd probably think, well, these seem to be a little bit more inclusive rather than exclusive. By these, I mean Labour.
Okay.
I found Conservative was more, estimate they focuses more on local issues. So today we got one and it was local. You know, it's quoting a mum and how she has improved to get a lift access in the local train station. So, you know, she's very much on. And I mean, I have had an issue and had to write. I wanted to know who was going to respond. So 2 responded, which were Labour and Conservative. So,
Okay.
Could I just ask that might not just be an overthrow from the Disability Discrimination Act, now the Disability Act 2010?
Yeah, you were saying they've been coming in thick and fast.
That's
What did
probably
you
a
know?
bit nice in what I see, to be honest. I think so. They've overdone it. They've overcooked the whole thing, and none of them, very few of them, are telling you anything that is accurate or honest. It's spin, all spin, too much spin.
What do you want to be hearing from them then?
The truth. That'd be nice.
Oh,
You know, playing devil's advocate though, it doesn't sound like you're going to believe it if they were to leave.
Oh no, I would. I mean, if you're informed and you know it's not the truth, then you get sick of listening to it, don't you? But if you know that they're just playing a game with you, then and have been for a long time, then you're going to be indifferent to that. If you're just getting spun lies, it's essentially what they are. It sounds over dramatic, but if they are just lies or spins, then why would you listen to it?
Any particular things that you would pinpoint that you feel you
I think pretty much across the board. I mean, you know, the past 20 years or so have been pretty poor. And you know, everything you would want to ask when you want to talk to about, you know, social policies, public policies, are spun. They're not telling you the truth. So why would you listen to it otherwise? You know?
Any particular example?
They're not particularly. You'll go through them all tonight, I'm sure, a number of them, and you'll realise you talk about health, you talk about the economy, you talk about Europe, you talk about education. It's all going in one direction. It sounds very doom and gloom, but there's a stagnation. And if there's a stagnation, then those who are responsible for it are not going to tell you the truth if they've got something to lose or gain by it.
Okay. Well, I suppose that brings us to a really interesting question. What is the economy doing? Neil's talking about stagnation. Is that how it feels? The figures seem to be sort of looking up at the moment, but some people are saying it doesn't feel like that. Which side of that are you
doesn't
on?
feel like that in this part of the country, I don't think.
Okay.
I think if there is any growth, it's down south. I don't think it's up north. I do feel as if we get forgotten about to a large extent.
Technical recoveries, I think they call them in economics. There are technical recoveries going on. That doesn't necessarily mean it's feeding down. Maybe in one or two driver areas like London, but elsewhere, I get the impression there's probably not a tremendous amount of what they call GDP growth, gross domestic product growth. London there is, but there isn't enough.
Okay. Is that how it feels to everyone else?
Well, I know I've spoken a lot, but it hit me in the last month. I was made redundant from the charity that I work for, and whilst I voted Labour in the last time, I will be changing my vote to Conservative going forward, even though my charity received a 66% cut. And the reason why, even my husband said, I presume that you're not going to vote Conservative, and I said no, I am actually, because I know there's been a lot of austerity, but I saw what happened under Labour. I saw this charity get fed money under Labour government, and there were no targets. It wasn't target driven, there were grants, and the money was wasted. And when the Conservative came in, even though the money was cut, they gave it with conditions and under contract, and that's how it should have been. This is taxpayers' money and it should have been spent wisely. And fair enough, there isn't much money in the pot, and accordingly every public service, which we were effectively a public service because we were paid for by the Department for Education, we received a massive cut. What I didn't like is that they didn't warn the charity. The way people have lost their jobs within a month without any warning of any pot cuts.
Yeah.
That was wrong. I don't understand why that could happen. So they're my questions. But on the other side of that, after being in a job for 11 years, I've got 10 years and 11 years with another charity. I've gone to a job agency this week who've told me that you wouldn't believe how many jobs are out there. And I've got a job today in a school.
Well done,
And I feel, I felt, well, I'm at rock bottom here. This is the situation. And you do hear, well, there are jobs out there and the economy's picking up. And I'm speaking to everyday people, and the agency were perfectly honest. She said if you'd have come 2-3 years ago, it was a completely different picture. There weren't that many jobs around. So she said you are coming into it, even whilst it feels bad, you're coming in at a good time. So I do feel that the economy. I mean, for me, I did vote Labour before. And I come from, a Labour voting family. We can't debate it at home because, I come from, most of my family are teachers as well. So there's lots of issues and NHS. So it's been quite a difficult one, but the more I've read, and we've also done, I don't know if anyone's done the test online, where it actually goes through the different manifestos.
Has anyone done one of those? No. Now, Jessica, you were nodding to what Neil was saying. Is that something that really sort of rang true to you?
Kind of, it's really like, my husband and I have what I consider good jobs, well-paid jobs, but we still feel very poor, like shopping and things like that. And so, my husband was made redundant in December, and he, walked into another job. So there are jobs out there, and we feel like you're being paid well, but then you go shopping and all your money just goes. Yeah. So it's,
Oh, so it's this cost of living thing that everyone seems to be talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's high cost of living.
Okay, and is anyone else picking up on that?
Well, my experience, doing the job that I've done over 20 odd years, is that certainly similar to yourself, up until about 2 years ago, the lack of jobs was quite noticeable, especially for young people, because I mainly work with young people. It was difficult to get good quality jobs. And now there are more, for example, apprenticeships. They don't necessarily pay that well. There are some rogue training providers out there who are milking the system, getting the support out there that's meeting certain targets, but not necessarily delivering. But there are some good companies that are offering good opportunities and traineeships and things like that. and our organisation was devastated with redundancies, and we had to meet certain targets, very similar to what you're saying, in order to prove, quite rightly, that we were doing our job effectively. And also seen, I mean, over the last 15, 20 years or so, there's a massive rise in increase in university placement. You could do a degree in anything, be it criminology or whatever. It doesn't need to say there are jobs in those areas. And my view is that the government put too much, and it was partly a Labour government, it's partly a Conservative government before, too much money into higher education to fund higher education, and now we're paying the cost of that, and students going in are paying the cost of that. But there aren't necessarily jobs out, and now this is a change in tax, so well, we should be having more apprenticeships. And that's where a lot of money, I feel, was wasted all those years ago in people doing degrees that were really pretty meaningless because they couldn't use those. Didn't qualify. I mean, okay, you got those more complex skills that a degree could offer, but as far as practical skills in the workplace, whereas now it's more sort of apprenticeships, it's swinging back, and you can get more return for your money from a personal, individual level, compared to you know, the money in some respects is better spent on that. But there is still for the young person who's leaving school with poor qualifications, got learning difficulties, got D's or E's or F's at GCSE, the lack of opportunities is still quite poor, and I worry about the lack of investment that the Conservatives seem to be saying they're going to cut money within education. I feel that's an agenda which hasn't been broached by anybody really. The focus has been on NHS, the economy, quite rightly, immigration, but nobody's talking about education. And I've seen loads of schools that I work in, you know, they're making teaching staff redundant, and I think, oh, what's happening here, you know? And we're going to pay the cost of that somewhere along the line.
There's a lot of schools where teachers want to get out.
That's true.
Like, you know,
and the demands of teaching are just go on.
But they are. I mean, they are what they are. I mean, you know, the job is. You can go back into the history of education, but when you lose the ability to control the classroom, then you lose the ability to do your job. When you do that, and the governments have accepted that, so they've done other things around it, like undermining the teaching profession. If it, you know, and in some respects, it probably did need undermining in some ways, I think. But if you do it to the extent that they've done it now, then you're not going to create an environment where you know, a learning environment. You know, the classroom has to be, to talk about education, the classroom has to be sacrosanct, it has to be a learning environment. And until you bring in policies that control children's behaviour, and this is a national thing, generally speaking, you're not going to, and that's going backwards.
That's the biggest part of learning, isn't it?
Well, you've got to be there.
Discipline.
You know, you've got to be there. And you know, the learning environment isn't there.
I totally agree with you.
And you totally would, because you've seen it change.
That's why I've left. That's why I'm not in my teaching post anymore.
So we've talked a bit about what isn't on the agenda this time. We mentioned a few different things there, but what are they offering?
Well, Labour are talking about, you know, cutting tuition fees and making a huge deal about it, but I went to university and because my family didn't earn enough, I didn't pay any tuition fees. So I don't think it makes that much of a difference anyway, reducing them by is making such a huge deal. It doesn't matter. I don't think if you can't afford it, you can't afford it, and they pay for you to do it anyway. And when I went to university, there were so many people there just for the sake of being there. Like you were saying, they were doing, like, you know, sports psychology and things like that. What is the point of getting a 2-2 in sports psychology? They were just there, they were just drinking every night, they're pointless. There needs to be much more focus on apprenticeships and preparing people to work, not sending them to university.
But it's also a sign when you're actually getting students coming through into university and when you're teaching them. I mean, my name is on all my lecture slides, and RUSTLE, Oi Rustle. you know, and it's quite sad really. And when I gave some adequate formative and summative feedback to one particular student, I did say, you know, there's no excuse to get spelling wrong. And she said, this isn't an English degree. I said, well, no, it's a building surveying degree, but you're going to an industry where there are certain levels of attainment that one would expect to get. And, you know, they're just there. They just they think £9 a year, I'm buying a degree.
Not only that, showing a complete lack of respect for you and the teachers. Speak to you like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Yeah.
But that is a consequence of an establishment that has understood that they can't do anything about education, real problems of education. And that's why there's an explosion. But when you look at the big employers in the food industry, you know, Tesco's, Morrison's, etc., who are setting up numeracy and literacy schools that include an add-on, which is customer service skills, then you know your education system's broken, because they're taking in, they do it on the quiet, but they're doing it. And, you know, they're not, because they're not being, what's coming out at 16 is not good enough. So they have to set up their own schools. Schools are saying, you know, vehicles for learning. In order for them to do what I presume most people would consider to be low-level, low-skill jobs.
Yeah.
So there's an education system that's broken. They won't address it because they can't. Why? That's the question. That's what should be getting asked. Why? Why in education? Similarly with police, I imagine most public policy jobs, what is the problem that we can't resolve it?
Okay, so I'm afraid for all that those are very valid and interesting questions,
Yes.
I'm going to guide you back to the question I asked, which was, what policies are they offering?
There's one thing that keeps popping up from my point of view, mostly amongst, I suppose, the more left-wing parties. I was watching all the debates, and it was all left-wing parties and then Farage in the end, and they all were on about getting rid of 0 hours contracts. That just seems to be a silly idea to me, because half the country wouldn't be in work without them. You know, casual labour, lots of employers wouldn't be able to employ people if they thought that they were going to have to, you know, sign them up to a permanent contract or something. So I don't really understand.
It helps small businesses, 0 hours. You know, it helps them get people in. It gets abused. I think there are rules and regulations that should be more in place for 0 hours. It shouldn't be used for employees in a sense that after a certain period, if that employee is suitable and the work is there, they should be able to do something. So there should be guidelines, but yeah, getting rid of 0 hours. And also, I think Labour have also said they're going to get rid of internships. Now, we've used interns in our charity, and they're fresh out of university, often haven't had much experience. I've got 3 nieces who are in university, and not one of them's working while they're there, in very privileged positions. That's not how I did it. I was in work, and if you haven't got work experience and then you go straight into the workplace, it's quite a shock. So internships are quite valuable as well, and this let's get rid of them, because they think they could be misused. Well, every intern that we had, we took on. So, you know, there are reasons why they are a good...
So quite a lot of stuff about employment playing around. Any other policies?
I think one they do look at, or play a little bit, is the environment. And I think the reason personally why they do that is because the targets, you know, are so almost quantifiable that they'll play with it, because it's a nice one. It's a nice woolly
So
one.
when you say they, who are you talking about?
The establishment, all the parties.
All the parties.
Well,
Okay.
you know, I say all of them. You know, the ones who are vying for power. They'll play that one because it makes people feel good.
Any particular promises that you've heard?
Not particularly, no. But I mean, it's all starting with the Green Party who'll give you this, that, and the other, and I can't remember them. So someone can put me right on this.
The GP one was a recent promise. The GPs, Labour came out at the weekend and said that you'll get an appointment. Was it within the day, ASAP? I thought, well, if it's urgent, I get one now anyway. So why is that? I
Lots of
question
people
that.
don't, though.
Yeah. Well,
Lots of people don't.
An urgent one, most of the time, if it's non-urgent.
Well, West Kirby Concourse is one of the worst places around for getting
Oh, well said. Well said. Yeah.
What policies have you heard, Julie?
Maternity is the same.
Maternity?
One-to-one support. Well, I got one-to-one support, so I didn't. It wasn't quite. It wasn't. You know, there wasn't any detail around it. Every time they announced something, it just seems to be a blanket. But you know, I got that. I had a midwife, so I don't see what the difference
Any
is.
other policies people have heard about?
Immigration. It's so big, you forget to talk about it. That's the biggest thing.
Okay. What are the different parties' policies on it?
Well, I think they're all agreed now that they need to limit it in some way,
Okay.
but I don't know whether they know how to limit it.
Well, they do.
Well, they
They
do.
won't put
They
some
do.
law, which is they take the rules
Exactly.
to get their own power back, and then they have the option. So if you go through your own parliament to do things, you can make your own rules, so you can govern yourself if you decide to limit
If you come
immigration
out
or
of
not.
Europe.
So,
If you're out
so
of
that
Europe,
leads you on to the point about Europe.
Yeah.
So that's the sticking point.
It is. Yeah, it is. It is the sticking point because.
And that's the conversation piece that the whole thing is driven by, because some of them saying we're not getting out of Europe, others are saying we're getting out of Europe.
So
But
who's
whether
saying
you-
what on Europe?
Conservatives are saying that there's going to be a referendum.
They said that
yeah.
in 2010 as well, so they're
But-
worried.
But that's because there's pressure from their own
UKIP.
backbenchers to do that.
Yeah.
And there are also possibly some pressure from UKIP as well.
Well, I think whether
So
you
they've
love or
been
hate
forced into
UKIP, they've actually brought it to the fore,
Yes, they
haven't
have.
they?
Yeah, I think
They've
the
actually-
Conservatives do actually see UKIP as a threat.
They do, absolutely.
Because I've noticed that since I forget the chap's name. I'm awfully sorry. Yeah, Raj. Since he's sort of become more popular, I think there has been a sort of they're more willing to talk about immigration, and saying, well, but I think there's something English about. All politicians, insofar as they don't wish to offend, and to be cut and dry about immigration doesn't mean that we're a racist state. And I think, why do we skirt around the danger zone? Black, white. You can't say black. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? I had that in the 80s when I was at Lambeth Council with Ted Knight in the good old days and the 80s. But nonetheless, it's something which has got to, I think, evolve at a rate which is appropriate to our nation. We don't like change immediately, but if we embrace change to see the benefits, I think it does need a referendum. And I do believe UKIP have decided that they will be giving a referendum rather than just blanket. We'll have this Australian point system.
Well, you've got to go. Why you would do that is because you've got to be democratic. When the immigration, as well as many other things went on, it was done without any consultation with the public, so it was undemocratic, and consequently you didn't have any consent. So you don't have consultation, i.e. you ask people, and you don't get a consent, i.e. yay or a nay, you're not being democratic. And that's at the very heart, most people now begin to say, is at the heart of the problem with Europe. Because it's undemocratic. And when people haven't got a right to say and do, and are not listened to, in fact they're not trusted, then you've got a problem. And that's where we're at
One of the
now.
problems is that all the political parties are based in Westminster, which is a multicultural city. So, and I used to live in London, a lot of my friends and family do, and it's absolutely normal to Londoners. It's multicultural, and that's how the world should be. The rest of the country don't feel like that or experience it in the same way. There's so many places around the country that are suffering, or the white population is suffering because of
But I don't think that a lot of people have a problem with the multicultural aspect.
Don't have a problem with immigration when it's controlled.
It's how we sustain it.
It's how it comes out of the system. When people are paying into the system and they're bringing in education, they're bringing their skills, and they pay into this system and work in this country, I haven't got any issue with that.
I have, because I think where you've got a problem is that if you bring people in who are skilled or unskilled, it doesn't really matter. Again, it feeds back to this issue about democracy. If you can't democratically say, I have no problems in saying I don't want immigrants in the country, or I've got no problem saying I do want immigrants in the country. If you're not democratic, you're not asked, so you're not consulted, and then people are coming in with good skills or no skills, but they are, because they're cheaper, you get economic displacement. And that means people who are voters and taxpayers in this country aren't getting the opportunity to compete for jobs, and therefore, and because of political correctness, you can't say anything. And now that's what's been, the suggestion is, I believe it as it happens, that's what's been happening. So as a consequence of that, you've got a problem, and that's why there's a sort of a hamstrung sort of society I think we live in.
Caroline, you look like you might disagree with that. Oh, sorry, Alistair.
I wasn't sure if you meant people were cheaper or businesses were cheaper, because
What's to say, you've got points there, but people are, you know,
Well, if we're
commodity
all-
workers, labour.
Resources are cheaper.
Yeah, resources. Yeah.
Alistair.
Well, I think what we don't also think about is the fact that many Britons are quite entitled to, a lot of people go and live and work in Spain and other countries in France, and no one questions that. To the extent that people in
The Spanish
Spain,
do. The Spanish question, for
right,
example, and
Oh.
the French question, for example, we just don't hear it.
maybe that is the case. Maybe that's the case, Neil. That might well, but I'm open to, you know, but it's almost the point where, at the moment, people living in those countries are also asking to have the chance to be able to vote in this country. You think, well, hang on here, what's going on? If you're living and working out abroad and you've taken up that right to do so, can you then vote in this country? Well, I can't understand how we can do. But we don't always look at that other side of the coin, the opportunities that we have to go and work abroad in Europe as much
it's the
as...
choice, isn't it?
It's that choice,
Okay.
and I think it's made
It's
Coming
your
back to this point
choice.
about
It's your
democracy.
choice
Yes.
to go, but is it the choice of the people who live in those areas? Is it their choice?
Well, coming back to this
No.
point about choice
No.
and democracy, the referendum, so the Conservatives are offering a referendum. Does that make them a more appealing party to vote for, the fact that they're offering that referendum? Or is it not really relevant?
It does to me, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the EU, and I think it'll bring it to the forefront and give some education to the
Okay,
issue.
Yeah.
so have the debate.
Yeah,
Yes,
have the debate.
definitely.
As long as it's a good debate,
It's a proper
it's a
debate.
proper debate of the pros and cons of every aspect of being in Europe, yes.
But then again, it's got to be a definitive answer as well, hasn't it? Because if you look at Scotland, they had a referendum last year to decide whether they wanted to stay in or out, and they chose to stay in the UK, and then now they want another referendum to ask the same question again. You know, I mean, it has to be a definitive answer, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
if the country decide that's what they want, and that's what has to happen.
It can be a change, a fluid thing though with Europe, and it's probably, you know, in the same way that
Sure, you know,
second
surely every few
change in
years,
Scotland
of course,
with the
but you know,
oil.
not every.
I think it's interesting now, I was just listening to you guys, well, collective people, about immigration, and we're really talking about the front door immigration, aren't we? What about the back door? You know, we're not talking about that. We do not see, I mean, look at the controls. I forget whether that little township that they've got in Calais is still about. I forget what it's called, the jungle or something.
Yeah.
But I'd say, as a British person, if the French are allowing people to come, they're they're jolly well responsible for them. They do not come here if they know, and they're not, if they don't have, you know. Brussels should give people control to manage, you know, their own country, and I feel that, you know, if the border patrol do various busy railway lines and then they pick people out who might be trying to dodge and in the way that evade, if this person is caught and hasn't, you know, got the details, don't release them again, only to abscond. You know, they're laughing at us. They are laughing at us.
So what are the party's policies on immigration then?
Like depression, as I said, there's a lot of spin going on, and so there'll be.
They are saying they're going to limit, but
But they have
They haven't got the power to limit. Ultimately, they haven't got the power to limit.
that's in all the debates. That's what
If you don't have the power to limit, then they're just offering you spin.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't got the staff, have they?
No.
Yeah, well, they had a border control agency that they dismantled, I believe, under Labour governments or new Labour governments. They dismantled it. I don't know if it was done deliberately. Some people say it was. Others just say it was.
But that's about bringing people
That's
in.
a Labour policy
I have heard the Conservatives, you know how money is going out to families who are living abroad. I have an issue with that. If someone is working in this country, then I don't have an issue.
Working
But when
tax,
there's-
child credit.
yeah, it's going out of the country, and the Conservatives have addressed that, so that won't be happening.
Is it the Conservatives who were saying that they won't be paying any benefits for the first 2 years of the
Yes.
That's my understanding.
Yes.
But remember, the reason why you have an open borders, you don't have like nation states, you know, with borders and stuff. It's the so-called free movement of labour, and the idea of that is to create a deflationary pressure on wages. And so that's what you call a right-wing libertarian argument. That means they want profits up by dropping and containing level of wages.
Which
So-
segues us nicely to our next. You're great. I should take you to all my breaks. To our nice topic, which is about business. What are the parties saying on business? What have we
More of
heard? What they promise? More of it?
More of it. That's what they're saying anyway.
Are there any differences between them?
I do a bit of
All
the
the businesses.
Well, didn't Labour say, didn't Miliband
they're-
say that he wants to cap prices on utilities and
Cap and prices on utilities.
he's gone quiet on that now?
They're going to raise the minimum wage of labour,
Mhm.
and that can affect small businesses.
To £8.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, interesting what you just said there, because I remember when my first ever work experience, it was at Harrow Park Hospital, and these heated trays, which provide about, I think some of them reach about 30 meals, you know, in the trays. Do you know how much they costed then, in 1981? £33,000
What for one sack?
for one trolley that you plug in. This is, I really am short for words. Now, it would be great if there could be a micro monopolies merger or commission or something that evaluates public spending properly.
That's when you get
You know.
answers. Yeah.
You do.
You know, the
Yeah.
NHS is probably
Why are
the
we
biggest one
spending
that throws
that?
up.
Can we get it in China cheaper? Yes, of course we can.
What cheaper, the hot plates?
Well, well, they were called like the Grundy trolleys, the the heated trolleys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely
I think
astounding.
my
really.
granny's got one of them. Definitely didn't cost her 33 grand. So what are the party's policies on the NHS then? What do we know about what they think on the NHS?
Yeah, definitely. So Labour and say more doctors.
Labour, more doctors.
More doctors and nurses.
Interesting that one because whilst we pay for students to get through on an NHS,
Grand.
we don't pay for doctors because they seem to be, you know, so are these doctors going to come in from other countries? Where are they going to come from? How are they going to assist? How is that policy going to come through so that we get more doctors?
Okay,
Where
so
are
you
they
want to
gonna
know where
come
they're
from?
coming from.
Labour's been
nice
very
one.
vague. All these bullet points on the literature that's come through, it's just, you know, this is going to happen, but it's not anything about how it's going to happen.
Okay.
I saw a nice one on the news last week that said that a third of the GPs in Britain were due to retire in the next 12 months. So
In 12 months?
that's what it said. It was just a little thing on the tick tape on the bottom. But
Due and want to.
Yeah, want to, yeah. Want to.
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
speak
want
to
to.
any GPs,
Yeah.
they steer you away from medicine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're feeling almost as pressured
Very
as teachers
pressured.
are and things like
Totally.
that.
I think
Totally.
Conservatives are looking to put more of your clinic type surgery back into a GP surgery,
Okay.
which to me makes sense. That's how it used to be. You know, a lot of the small procedures and would take some of the pressure off some of the clinics in, you know, but that's a tip of the iceberg. You know, the NHS is mismanaged.
I'd like to see them rather than looking at the socio-economic catchment area, prescribing and delivering services that are required. And I think I'm going to mention it. Mental health is very underfunded and undervalued, and if someone is sick, they need help there and then. They don't need to wait and wait and wait.
Yeah. Because where do they go?
Well,
Where do they go?
yeah, they can go many places, can't they?
Yeah.
There's some particularly nice places.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
And have we heard have you heard new policies on mental health?
Yes, I have. In terms of generally speaking, I think I was correct in saying that Farage mentioned last night that there are far too many middle management in the NHS, which certainly needs to be addressed. They were. I remember that being something which made me listen. You know, I was suddenly going,
Did that
gosh.
that ring
Yeah, that
through as
resonated.
true?
Yeah,
Okay.
that resonated with me, and it made me quite annoyed, really, because you know, a hospital is a health factory. It's not. Hang on, let's see how many strides it takes you to do. You know, it's not a bureau. It shouldn't be. I think it's positions for the boys. I think, and I think that this, as far as I'm concerned, has been the conservatising, if you like, of the health service, with having a little bit more opportunities for private and not for mainstream.
There's been quite a lot about high salaries for the management as well, I think, hasn't it? But I'm not sure what the policies are about that, but people being paid off with the means.
I like what the Conservatives are saying about having, you know, like a family doctor again, going back to seeing the same doctor every time.
But I would like to see how that's actually going to happen, though.
But you can already choose your own doctor. You can already choose to
my
see a
practice
doctor.
is like that.
Right.
I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky because I do have. My doctor wanted to go back to the old family practices where it was just him and another doctor, and you know, and he knew us, and we knew him, and we see him all the time, and it's brilliant practice.
That's when they can take control.
That's right.
Basically,
It's not a big group practice. It's very small. And I can always get an appointment. I'm very
Brilliant. We all need to move now. So I think we've had quite it's a very brief canter, but a bit of a sort of overview of what the policies are that we're hearing about. What's the big selling point of each party then? So if you were writing it doesn't have to be a good slogan, but if you were writing an explanation, you should vote Conservative because what's the sell?
The economy, they brought the economy back.
Vote Conservative because they brought the economy back?
Yeah. I didn't say
safe hands.
Yeah, safe hands. For me, Ed Miliband does not have a history.
No.
I don't like the way he was elected in, and to leave a note to say, good luck, there's no money left.
That's a running joke that I heard on the radio. That was that's something they've always done it, but they're never going to do it again because it went down so far.
It was.
So every administration does apparently.
I would not. I think they've made some headway, but they need to make more. Whilst austerity is not a nice, because it affects everyone in some form, but we know if there's no money there, just keep saying that you're going to pay
on the
for
news
it.
today they were saying that I don't know, is it the Institute of Fiscal Studies had studied all the manifestos and they said that the Conservatives would carry on making cuts. If they're re-elected, they'll carry on making cuts, whereas Labour won't make any cuts, but they won't reduce the deficit and borrowing will go up.
26 billion a year.
I think you said they will make some cuts, but it's not as severe.
Borrow. Absolutely, certainly will be making this many.
So there is a theory that every election is a choice between two options, and one is better the devil you know / let them keep doing the job they're doing, finish the job, and the other version is it's time for change.
But
Do you buy that? Which one is it?
Change. I don't think there is any change in this one. I think I did vote Labour before, and the more I've seen and heard, they're not giving a strong enough argument, and they're not showing me that they're going to do a good job going forward. I've actually been I don't think there is hardly any difference. This is a different Labour.
I don't think they learned any lessons from last time.
I don't think I feel that people need change desperately like it was back in 97.
Okay, so this is maybe not a hopey changey election.
No,
we're not there.
This is to get the economy, keep it as it is.
Do you buy that, chaps? You've gone very quiet over there.
Well, my issue is more a local issue, not a national issue. It's a local issue with my local MP, as it were,
right.
That I would vote Labour because I don't want the current Conservative MP. Which is
Spill it out. Why don't you like us?
Well, I think there are 2 or 3 reasons. I think she lacks any real compassion and warmth and ability to communicate, communicate with the public. And with people generally. I've had many dealings with her in the past, and that's my view. I go into schools, and there's one person who was interested in politics, and I didn't say anything. I say totally neutral. I'm quite interested in getting in politics. Or have you thought about contacting your own local MP? And she said, well, yeah, that would be a good idea. But I've met Esther McLean. This is her words. She hates young people, and that were her words before I'd ever opened my mouth. And one person saying that, so.
She said that, did she?
Yeah.
Did she say it? Yeah. I don't know.
And that's what she said, and I thought, well, if she's giving that impression for whatever reason, then something's going wrong here. And okay, that's a young person who was 17, so she can't actually vote, but that's not the point. And it's more her lack of the bedroom tax, and she brought in a lot of changes which needed to happen as far as welfare was concerned, but it did hit the hardest hardest of people, a lot of disability benefits, and it did needed reforming, and it's one of the most difficult thing to do, but she was the minister in charge at the time to bring in those, and it's really hit people really, despite it going to be a trial, as it was being introduced on a trial based throughout the country. They just ran roughshod over that, so we would introduce it completely, and people have to do it online now, and some people haven't got the skills to do it online, and it's hitting the worst off in society worst, and I think for me personally, that's a personal...
That takes you away from her personally.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So
how do other people feel about her?
Well, I had occasion to meet her once a few years ago, and she was really quite rude and dismissive. She came to my school, she used to be at my school as a pupil, and then she was brought in to do some marketing or PR or something, and she just completely, I was a teacher, she walked into my class and completely ignored me. But so I always thought, don't know about you. But I don't know that would stop me necessarily voting for her. I think she may be doing her job quite well. You know what I mean? I don't think
just maybe not a people person.
I don't know, she doesn't strike me as being particularly warm.
Education,
Okay. And what about the opposition? Do we know the name of the opposition?
Margaret Greenwood.
Not heard of her or seen her though.
Lovely lady.
Is she?
Russell's a fan?
Oh yes.
I've never heard of her or seen her
No, I haven't.
until she put her little shop up on Market Street. So,
Anyone else had any experiences of her?
no, not a name.
Until the shop front came.
Okay. You've obviously come across her.
Yeah, she came to my doorstep.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And
Nothing but smiles. She was very, she had time for me. I couldn't believe it. I felt very privileged.
Is that recently?
No, it wasn't recent. It was about a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
And she was just said she was just randomly knocking on people's doors. Well,
mental health acts, she
wasn't. Well, I say randomly. She was probably choosing about, 2 per road in an area, maybe doing about, probably about 10. Just saying hello. And I just thought, this is good. This is.
I was looking at the options on my postal vote form yesterday, and I'd only heard of Margaret and Esther. Hadn't heard of any of the others.
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay, so
And there's one independent, isn't there? Is it David James?
Yeah, I think this sounds awful. But the Liberal candidate on the leaflet that came through, his photo didn't even look professional.
No.
Didn't really know.
Did you see it?
Yeah, it changed
His
today.
bike
Did
again.
it come through today?
Yesterday,
yesterday,
it looked
sorry.
like sort of
You did his motorbike.
Maybe
didn't
it's
you?
it looked like it was in the park, it's just like it wasn't what I expected. And I don't mean that to be in a it just looks
is that
goofy.
nice and lovely, and they're probably local and they're not doing this professionalised, or do you just think, I'll get your
I
act
think
together?
that's what he wanted it to be, because that was his opening line, was his how long he lived here and his but
Do you buy that? Anyone buy that?
Not this late
It's
in
not
the day,
particularly
no.
professional, is it?
No.
It's not. I mean, right now, it's more important that they're incredibly squeaky clean. It's important that they jolly well polish their shoes and listen to us.
So what's the sell for those others then? So we did, for the Conservatives, it's vote Conservative and the economy will keep going up. What's the sell for Labour? Vote Labour and...
They'll spend.
Okay.
They'll get us back when
And I don't
That's what I
believe
feel.
that, but I don't necessarily wholly disbelieve it.
I think they spend without any
Like reckless.
measure. Yeah, it's
Okay.
a reckless spend.
Russell, what's
I
the sell
like
for
how they
you?
spend, but they don't.
What is it for me? I believe that on the whole, their policies reach more people than the policies of the Conservative.
Okay.
I think the very socialistic value is quite important, and it's something worth voting for.
Okay, so the values and sort of why they're doing things is
Yeah,
important, as
yeah.
well as what the policy
Their
is.
propensity to care is appropriate.
I'm the opposite. I don't think there's any passion from Ed Miliband at all about anything apart from attacking people.
Yeah, I think
It's
all too often
that
though.
he's just randomly picked some policies and
Yeah.
just spent his
I
whole
agree
time
with this.
slagging off them.
Does that put you
I
off?
actually
Yeah,
think it's unfortunate that we do tend to judge a person by how they look.
Oh,
In my
How he
day,
looks,
in my
it's
day,
scripted.
music was on the telly. music was on the radio, and now the video is selling the song. The face shouldn't sell the party. And I'm not saying he's not blessed with good looks, because that would be wholly inappropriate, but he doesn't seem to have the backbone others of his predecessors.
It's a bit of a double bluff though, isn't it? Because he doesn't look the part. That's primarily because he isn't the part, because his politics aren't the part. If he's relying, he went for an opening salvo, capping utilities, interfering with markets. They tried it before and it failed. So that's all they've really got, is to interfere, and that's okay if it works, but there's no evidence that it does work. And the problem,
Yeah,
what
but
is the
doesn't
problem?
fiscal policy only do the same thing anyway?
Chaps, I just want to come back to what Jessica was saying.
They will. They can't.
I just want to come back to what Jessica was saying. No, you were saying you're not impressed.
No, he's stupidly made it all about him and his personality. You know, all that him
But the
being really strong and all
media
that.
have made that partly. That
But
they've taken on.
he's said as
taken that
well,
on
they
board.
made it about
It's
him and his
his
personality. We don't want it to be about him and his, passionate about being passionate about the policies and representing the party. He's made it all about him. I think
Well, maybe
that's
he's a
mistake.
patsy, and that is so difficult to be convinced that he is anything close to a leader, and that takes away. That's like a maelstrom, a high behind it, because the policies are just redundant. If you had somebody who's a
Oh, so
serious
it's a
contender,
ruse.
in a
We'll have a
sense,
rubbish leader and then no one knows some
they
policies
should have got rid
about.
of him a couple of years ago when he clearly couldn't do what he was supposed to do. And if they'd done that, then they would have taken and they got somebody with a bit more clout and credence. Then you wouldn't have been concerned, distracted by this chap who is what he is, and you'd have to look at the policies, and then the policies would be under scrutiny far more than it is. So
Okay.
so maybe it is. I don't know, but I mean that's how I feel about our establishment politicians, our establishment full stop. But there you go.
Okay,
So probably voted for his brother.
Yeah, possibly he'd have more
Yeah.
credence. Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Even though his policies would be not.
So if it came down to Prime Minister, if you were just picking a leader, which leader do we like best?
David Cameron.
Cameron.
Yeah.
But I,
I want a leader, not a Farage.
Yeah,
You
he's
like
very
Farage?
strong.
You're keen on Farage?
I like Farage actually, but I wouldn't vote for him because I think there are too many
he's
I
a
think-
very
I-
strange people.
I think this is a very interesting one, really, because the little sound bites that I got initially from Farage made me think, blimey, this sounds good. Isn't it about time I voted bloody well selfishly? And then I thought for a moment, and he let himself down last night, so I've decided definitely.
Why? What did he say
definitely.
last night?
He was this chap who was a lovely little chap who I forget, he was interviewed, and he said something. This chap was very good at interviewing him, and he was getting him a little bit frustrated. And I saw a little chink in his armour, and it made me think, no, you're not quite as forthright as your rhetoric would make us believe. And I just thought, you're pretty weak under pressure. However, if we were going to have them for 5 years, it might make an interesting noise in Britain. I tell you, and it might align parties towards, finite points. This is what the nation needs.
But this
Last
is the thing,
week he
isn't
wasn't.
it?
He
Because-
wasn't weak when he was up against Miliband and all the other left-wing parties.
Well, he was good.
Hugely
And it
discriminated
was it was a
but no
massive,
one
totally
our
left-wing
establishment don't
audience.
seem to care. If your establishment, your left wing, or the media are, the media are a real letdown in this country. They're a disgrace, actually.
Totally.
And on that, it came to the fore when that, I didn't watch it off, but I read about it and I saw little snippets of it, where he was basically booed by a hand-picked audience because he was telling the truth, which is that we can't spend any money.
Yeah.
And so the other
And
four
he's
got
also
away
classed as a
talking in
racist
fairy
because he
tales.
speaks about
And that's the essence of our politics today.
Yeah.
If you don't like what we hear, then we won't
Well,
tell you.
I actually, can I just...
If you don't like what you hear, so we won't tell you yet.
Point I
We'll tell you
wanted to-
something completely different.
No,
That's
that's right.
lies.
I just wanted to say, isn't it time for everyone to be honest? They spend a lot of time cleverly avoiding the answer, and they have various little techniques how they can, of course, well, it's not exactly what I said, etc., etc., etc. Don't you think there should be a month coming up to the election? If I ask you a question, you either answer me or you're not even in the running.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here. Let's wash our undies in public, so to speak. Excuse the rustlers.
Social media is at the moment putting through Ed Miliband was questioned over I don't know if anyone's seen it, where he does a repetition of the same answers and he does it 3 times and they have the words and it gets filled in every time he repeats it.
Yeah.
Social media is the hope, I think, in our politics, because at the moment they haven't managed to connive it. They'll try, and they're trying, and they're doing a job, but it's actually the way forward.
It'll have a job to do it.
Yeah,
A real job to do it.
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely, because that will bring out the real, true.
Well, it'll give you you've got a chance anyway.
Yeah.
Because there are
Okay, yeah, so we're not keen on Miliband.
Well, David Cameron, there was a, how they look at the leaders, I think, I don't know, there was ITV, we were looking at individual leaders. Unfortunately, I only got to see David Cameron. I would have liked, because I actually quite like Nick Clegg. But
how do we feel about Nick Clegg around the table?
I think he's a really nice guy. I think he's a
Does seem like a nice chap.
Nice guy, full stop.
yeah, he's a nice guy, but
And I liked Vince
he's a little bit wet.
But he's
But a little bit wet.
a little bit, there's that element.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
David Cameron, on this show, they came into his family and his background, and it was a day in the life of David Cameron. But what really came or hit home, which you've sort of hit on with Nigel Farage, was he can hold his own when he's under pressure. He doesn't rise to a stressful situation. He holds it and he is calm, which almost seems to go against him with regards to the media. Because when he's, when he's attacked,
He's a professional actor, isn't he?
He's emotionally
professional actor. He's got PR. He's got teams of PR.
I don't think he stands up for himself well enough. I think there's a lot more that he could have said about the economy. I think there's a lot more.
Because he's in a coalition. So that's his card.
Yeah, but there were a lot more that he could have put forward to educate. That when he was under debate, there was a lot more he could have said that he didn't say, which gave ground for everyone else.
Okay, so you think he maybe needs a bit more fire then sometimes? It's possibly too calm.
It doesn't bother me calm, to be honest. I like to see calm.
Yeah.
I don't like to see too much fire, but maybe just a little bit more passion at times. But I think he should present more of the underlying detail.
Yes.
There should be more facts and figures that come out. It always seems to be very blanket coverage.
He doesn't know it.
I think he does. That's the
I think
thing.
he's quite a
David
bright
Cameron's
fella.
pretty,
I think he's quite a bright bloke, but I don't think he's.
But they don't
He's not a leader, he's a manager. He's not a leader, he's a manager. And that's their manager.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Why don't they have KPIs and their own targets as to what they said and what they actually did? Something that could be tested. And 66 grand I think they're earning a year.
What's the KPI, sorry?
Key performance indicator.
Yeah.
Do you know what an average MP claims in expenses?
80,000?
No. This was an estimate pay figure. Aside from their salary, their expenses on average, just in the Wirral, is around 160,000 per MP. That's every MP.
Great.
Hers was the second lowest, apparently. Second lowest. I don't know who was the lowest. My charity, which is a family support charity, which supports mental health, supports families, so it supports the families behind the children going into the classroom, which is often a difficult area. We got the equivalent of 3 MPs' expenses to fund a national charity. Reduced from $1 million to $500,000. That puts it into perspective.
It does.
That's just expenses, that's not salaries.
Russell, I think you get to go first. When you hold up your pictures that everyone can see and explain which superhero David Cameron is.
I think he'd be Mighty Mouse.
Mighty Mouse. Why is he Mighty Mouse?
Because I can't help but feel, aside from his Eton-esque prowess, I think he's a bit of a Mavis on the sly.
Oh, I don't really know.
So, Mighty Mouse.
Okay, anyone else? What superhero is David Cameron?
Captain Economy.
Oh, Captain Economy. He's even got a pound sign on his tummy.
Yeah, that's a shield.
Oh, it's a shield, like Captain America.
That's a shield, yeah.
Captain Economy.
Yeah, with the slick back hair.
Excellent.
And he still gets to wear the tights.
Right. Anyone else? Julie?
He's Superman, saving Britain from Labour.
I assume with less red than Superman then. I should have given you crayons, shouldn't I? Jessica, come on, you've been so busy. What was your reasoning?
Could think of any
The
others.
first thing that came
Just the first thing that came to me.
He's such a family man. I think I don't know, like,
Oh, okay.
just big, strong, like,
Big, strong family man. Something of the Superman about him. Go on, show your picture to the
Oh
camera.
no, it's awful, but it's really muscular.
Very muscly.
Yeah, he's quite attractive.
Alistair, what are you hiding
Well,
there?
mine is a male version of Baudelaire with a trident.
Naked?
Not as a naked.
With it, why is that?
Or fighting for Britain.
Okay, and Neil, what have you?
Well, I just thought I did try to do a cape, and it was the Green Cross Code man for some reason. That's what came into mind. Guiding you over the road or something. I don't know why. It doesn't look like anything.
That's his cape. I quite like the cape. Turn over the pages, you know what's coming next. If Ed Miliband was a superhero,
Can't look.
what superhero would Ed Miliband be? Go. Russell, what's yours then?
Zorro.
Oh, he's Zorro.
Yeah.
Why is Ed Miliband Zorro?
Because he's going to slash a few things. Isn't he? He's going to be.
That's a good
He's going to be. Wings. No, he's not. His wings are like steel. But he just seems to be a Saturday morning kind of guy.
Zorro is a Saturday morning
Well,
guy?
it was when I was about 13, 14, 15 at school during what his was.
Okay.
But he's kind of like he loves politics, but he loves playing with the young with his youngsters on a Saturday. So he's a bit of a Zorro man. Yes, Daddy will slash this, Daddy will slash that. So he's
Okay.
That's the cool so.
Not entirely sure what to take away from that.
Yeah.
We might have to come back to Zorro. Anyone else? What's Ed Miliband?
Edman, not quite Batman, but with his little bat wings. I think the way I see it is a lot of what he portrays isn't visible. It's not, so there's that darkness to the unknown. It's the unknown.
He's like the dark,
mystique of
not quite
Batman.
night.
Yeah, we don't know. No one really knows.
Ooh, okay. I can't look
It was
at
either
the
that
wings.
or the Mr. Bean character who plays the 007, but not quite. That's how I.
What's his name?
What's his?
oh yeah.
Johnny
Johnny
English.
English.
Yeah, but I don't know. Is he really superhero material?
Sometimes.
That's the first thought I had.
Julie, what have you got down there?
Oh, he's not very good actually, and he's very similar to David Cameron. He's just red hair, but he should really be Wallace out of Wallace and Gromit.
Hannah, I want to see where you're shading. Come on.
It's got something in common with Bruce Wayne, I suppose. What about Honey? I think he's quite rich, but I don't think he's got much in common with Batman, really. I don't think of any other
Okay.
heroes, I'm afraid.
Maybe he's got a bat cave. That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
Maybe a bat cave.
A bat
You can
cave,
put that
yes.
up if you want. Something like that. Is it?
And he's got to find the money somewhere, hasn't he? So
Yeah.
Yeah.
In his bat cave, maybe.
Batman.
in his bat cave, yeah.
Jessica.
Oh, he's a lollipop man.
Go on, show us the
They're like
picture.
heroes, aren't they? Oh, he's really skinny and geeky lollipop man.
Why is he a lollipop man?
He likes to think he's, really powerful and can control certain things, but he's not really. Doesn't have enough about it.
But he can't even control the traffic.
Okay, so is he one of those really scary, sort of monomaniacal lollipop men who's like, no, you shall not walk?
No, he's tries to be really friendly, but
Okay.
everyone kind of just sniggers behind, Doesn't that really, because he's so geeky and.
Oh, okay. I feel quite sorry for him now. So, Nick Clegg, predictably, gets turned into a superhero. There's just a lot of lorries full of radioactive material going around. What can I say? And Nick Clegg gets covered in radioactive material and turns into a superhero. What kind of superhero is Nick Clegg? That's a good sign.
It's gone very wrong. You start again. Oh, dear me.
Neil, you seem to be debating what name best
No, I'm
suits
just
him.
going to give him a name, and so I can't draw, so I don't give it a try.
No, that's the problem.
I've got a name for him. Anyway,
What's he called then?
he's unappreciated man. I I think that's probably how he feels.
In your head, how does he look? Okay, you couldn't draw it, but tell us about Mr. Unappreciated.
He looks like Nick Clegg. That's about it.
What's
really.
his superpower then?
To upset as many people as possible. That's his, because that's what he's sort of done. But he's actually done quite a good job, I think.
Okay.
So that's why he's unappreciated.
Jessica, what have you got for Nick Clegg?
Not really super, Inspector Clegg.
Inspector. Let's have a look at the picture. Oh, I like that.
He's very handsome.
Looks a bit like a cowboy.
Yeah.
Why is he Inspector Clegg?
I don't know, he kind of does a lot of things behind the scenes and investigating things. And, But he doesn't, he leaves it to other people to sort of present the findings.
Okay, I like that.
I think you forget it's a coalition, so you don't really hear, he's not out there as much as he becomes.
You don't feel like you're hearing from her as much. Fair enough. Helena.
Well, I've made one up because I can't think of any more superheroes, so it's called Super Snake. Snuck into power under the door.
Ooh.
And slithers around, a bit like that.
What colour are his spots?
Pardon?
What colour are his spots?
Oh, I thought black on yellow.
Oh,
probably,
okay.
but
Black on
that's
yellow.
a bit poisonous, isn't it?
It's not really
I don't see him as poisonous particularly.
Okay. Go on then, Caroline.
I've got Electro from Spider-Man, so I thought if he's been touched by something, but he does have a lot of bright ideas, it just seems to be stifled along the way, so I need to be a nice sunshine.
Show us
bright
the picture.
yellow.
Go on.
Yeah, with his little sparks coming off when he's naked. He often seems to be a little bit exposed.
Okay, I like that one. Very well thought through. Julie.
It's just Mr. Nice Guy, isn't he? He's
Aww.
trying to be nice.
And he
trying
does
to-
look nice in your
I think so, yeah. And he's just trying to sort of bring a little bit of, calm and stuff into everybody else's policies, but he doesn't really seem to have many of his own that he can.
Okay. Alistair.
Well, mine's just a guy with an arm around his shoulder, really, somebody's shoulder. So I think he's the one who I would vote for if he had a chance of getting back in or getting in. Well, the Dem had a chance of getting in locally because they're because of supporting the most vulnerable. I think he would, and the policies are more geared towards supporting the most vulnerable in society. Unfortunately, it used to be Labour, but I'm not so sure it is anymore. But so the guy supporting something.
Okay. Russell, last one on me.
Well, I've got him as the Saint Simon Templar.
Ah, old school.
Because,
Old school.
he's kind of like, he's a bit squeaky cleaner, he'll say, I've made mistakes, I'll admit it, I've learned from them. And he's trying to be this, working persons who works, somebody who works from home, kind of, or the woman or the man whoever's playing that role, trying to be that kind of person that
Okay.
be attracted
He's
to.
up for that.
But I feel that in saying he's naked, I think there was another one that got a great deal. But I could have actually put a little yellow tie in there, but I just thought and I also believe that he once had a Volvo, and being a Volvo owner, they do get my vote. But
So, next up, if Nigel Farage was a superhero, I promise you there is other stuff after Nigel Farage. If Nigel Farage were a superhero, what superhero would you be? And then you get let off the drawings.
Right. I'll just do
Come on, you can do a drawing for this one. Come on. So Neil, who started after you all, has finished his. Just
therapy group this.
Wow, Russell, go on. Explain that.
I think he's being a little bit too extreme at the moment.
A bit too extreme. Russell, by the way, for those of you who are still deep in drawing mode, has drawn Hitler.
That's a bit unfair.
Well, I'm perhaps being a little satirical, but in terms of the extremity and his extreme politics, I feel that he is being so nationalistic. And I'm not suggesting from it. Adolf Hitler is not a hero, but he might have been considered a hero
when Germany, am I digging a hole?
Should we move on and let Russell answer his hole? Neil, do you want to balance that up? What's yours?
Yeah, go on. I think it needs
Siggy
balance.
man. Siggy man.
Siggy man.
Siggy.
Siggy man.
Yeah.
Fair
Okay.
enough. Jessica, what have you got?
He's Mr. Britain, but he lives in a big castle. He just
He
waves.
doesn't, isn't it?
So they're waving
With his
flag.
little flag. Aww. So sad. He's a bit
Castle next to
lonely.
another castle.
On his own.
With a flag at the top,
Yeah.
Union Jack flag
Yeah.
flying out. Okay.
He's holding it.
He's waving at himself.
Waving, yeah.
And singing it.
Singing the other.
Helena, that looks like the Michelin Man.
Cheers. I still couldn't think of any superheroes and don't know where that came from. It was just sort of strong and, I don't know, British, I'm not sure.
Okie dokie. Caroline.
I'm very much the G&T man with the flag straight
Okay,
to the
yeah.
back of his pinstripe suit.
Oh, a bit like
Can't
Bat
imagine
Wings,
him.
but it's in fact
Yeah.
a Union Jack.
He can't get out of that pinstripe suit, but I think he always sleeps in it, to be honest.
Okay.
But he does remind me of the barman in The Simpsons.
Yeah, he is.
Oh yeah, sign on.
No.
Yeah.
What's his name?
It looks like half the characters in the series.
Yeah, it was like Del Boy to me.
Yeah, it's just when you see his face and his like, that's who he always
Okay.
reminds me of. But
Okay.
he's got, yeah, and he has to have his ciggy out of his mouth.
Okay. Julie, who have you got?
I've got Pint Man.
Pipe Man.
Mr. UK.
Fair enough. And ooh.
I've got a creepy toad. Because I find him just creepy. I just think he looks like a toad.
He does look like a toad.
Yeah,
I like
just
toads.
his policies, he keeps changing them by the minute. That will suit
Well, he's a politician.
popular. Yeah, you're right. A lot, but a popular appeal to the, you know, the working class everyday man, but with real substance. Yeah, Mr. Popularity. So creepy toad that you can change his to suit them.
Yeah. Oh, well, I have to say, you haven't painted a particularly appealing picture of any of them. But I have here somewhere the next thing, which doesn't involve you doing pictures. You'll be relieved to hear. So take one, pass them around. You're only allowed one. You do this in secret. Right now, 2 weeks to go. Who do you think you're going to vote for? And then fold them in half and stick them in the middle of the table. So, first vote out, Conservative. So Conservative pile. Sorry, I've got way too much paperwork here, haven't I? First vote out is Conservative. Oh, Labour. Labour over here. Non-conformist, both in quarters and voted UKIP. Another Tory voter. And another one. Another UKIP. And another Labour voter. Which gives us 2 Labour, 2 UKIP, and 3 Conservatives.
Pretty much how it's going to go, isn't it?
Quite interesting that, isn't
You're
it?
quite a representative
Very
bunch, aren't you?
Yeah, I wouldn't have said that from what everyone had said either.
No.
What do you make of that then? What do you make of
I'm
what's
quite
going on
surprised,
here right
actually.
now? You're surprised?
I'm surprised. Yeah.
Okay. Who do you think's going to win? This is what you want. But who do you think's going to win? Come
I
on.
think Cameron will win.
Just
I think
He'll win
he
just.
will.
Do you think Cameron's going to end up back at number 10?
Yeah,
I'm not sure if he will though. I think Labour could get in. Well, no, I think they could form a government with the Scottish.
Okay. I suppose it's 2 different questions actually. Which party do we think is going to get the most votes?
Right.
Well, 3 questions. Which one do we think is going to get the most votes? Which one do we think is going to get the most seats? And which one do we think is going to end up with the Prime Minister? So who's going to get the most votes? What do you reckon?
Labour,
Labour.
I think.
Yeah,
Who's going to end up with the most seats?
Conservative.
Conservatives.
Okay.
I think the opposite.
Okay.
All right.
Well, when John Major got, when Tony Blair got in on a 200 majority, John Major got the same votes.
Did he?
About 10,000. And he got he
That's
got
the problem
200
with the
less
system.
votes. So what comes out of this election is, and it will definitely come out of this election, is the nonsense which is our voting system.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
And that's one reason actually why Lib Dem is because he voted against that. He promised it, and he went against it
Yeah.
because he spat his
That's
tummy
right.
out over something. So
Yeah.
that will come from this, I hope.
Mm.
Because you'll get the Scottish who will vote for it and get a million votes, and they could literally be the tail that wags the dog.
Mm.
And that can't be right,
No,
regardless of who it is. You know.
no, it can't be right. No.
So the voting system will hopefully change.
Okay, I think it'll take a while before that'll be great.
Well, you say that, but I mean, you know,
But it needs to.
it's been going on and on and on this. I mean, Tony Blair, the Labour Party, changed this country dramatically on the basis of having the same, thereabouts the same amount of votes as the other party, yet they got 200 more seats, so they could push anything through. But that can't be correct.
No.
So that's a wrong.
And who do you think is going to win this constituency?
I think it's going to be Mrs. Greenwood.
Okay.
Yes, I think she was good on the stage then. She should go back on the stage now.
Okay.
Is that Labour, was it?
No, Miss Vagina Monologues.
The cuddly essence of Labour.
Oh yeah,
You love you.
yeah.
Okay, so if Ms Greenwood does win,
Mhm.
and you wake up a month after polling day and you've got a Labour MP, what's different?
An air of optimism.
Air of optimism?
There of
Change.
panic.
Uncertainty.
Uncertainty for me,
Because
yeah.
Yeah, certainty for me too.
Okay, why is that?
Because I don't think anything's concrete enough. It's not. There's a fair bit of rhetoric, but not necessarily concrete stuff. And I don't think he'll have the. And the other thing is that he'll have to be backed up by the Scottish people, and that's going to be rule everything to start off with.
But he won't be able to do.
He won't be able to do
a great deal because you'll have to raise. I think that's what he said before. You have to raise money.
That's right.
Now you raise money, you do it one way. You get
I think
taxed.
I think we'll have another election within 18 months myself
Yeah, I think it could be. I think that could be definitely something.
because of all of that.
Yeah, it's quite worrying. That's why a lot of people, don't exercise their vote as well because they are unsure who to vote for, so they choose not to vote. It's a concern because you're not getting. There's so much similarity between what they're all saying this time round. If you do that test, it is shocking how close it all is.
Although, actually, I mean, while the policies we weren't clear on, actually it seems like we have quite clear ideas about who the leaders are, what kinds of things they believe in, and sort of where they're heading. Is that fair?
Yes.
No, I think it's the complete opposite. I don't think anyone really knows what's really being offered apart from one thing, which is safety in the technical economy. So if we can technically control the economy, something I promise. But they've got more justification in promising that this economy will make your life better now than say for example Labour or any other party who are saying we're going to borrow more money, we're going to spend more money, because they haven't got the basis on which to do that, because they can't.
Okay. Did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
I suppose just one thing, it probably answers itself really, but has the opinion of Ed Miliband changed for the better or worse during this campaign? Or not at all?
Worse for me. I thought this was an opportunity for him to actually show.
And shine.
And shine, yeah. Yeah. I was hoping to see, because we didn't get to see that last time round. So this was a point where he's actually come out as what I thought he was. So
To me, I think he
not
comes
leader.
across as being fairly weak.
Yeah.
I don't think he's got much confidence.
No.
No, and if he hasn't got confidence, then how can we be expected to have confidence
Yeah.
in him? That's the trouble,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It feels very scripted from Ed Miliband. And there's been so many stories of him being scripted as well. To me, a leader, it comes from the heart. You want a leader who doesn't need to keep referring to his notes. He actually knows what he's going to say because it's there. It's known.
It was quite interesting, I think, just to pick up on that he was the only leader on that panel of 7 who kick off by saying, "Well, Johnny, blah 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 blah," a young 17-year-old, and then he plays to camera.
He does.
It was very, very staged.
Who did that?
I didn't see it so
Particularly,
I guess they probably did, but I was more. I was
It's a bit more
quite
warm to the
critical.
others.
I was, yeah, you know. So
It was more noticeable. He's perhaps not so good at doing it.
I think
Is that what we're saying?
Well, no, he's actually very good at it in terms of he's trying to bring this real commitment as though I will give you this, believe me. You know, it's almost like.
Do you believe it?
Plausible.
I don't believe any
Can't be.
politician.
It's plausible.
In all fairness, they're all rogues. It's what do you least want that helps you decide what you're going to vote for.
Well, I think we found somewhere you and Neil agree.
I think in actual fact, I don't know this chap, he's a very interesting chap, great spokesperson. I think economic thing was quite an interesting thing for me. Although in many ways I can sound very, very, very much conservative, I'm a Labour boy, you know, because I think that matters to me. And that's not my background. My background is incredibly Tory.
I thought it was quite interesting that Ed Miliband came up, was it last Saturday? Up locally. And he went to the school, he went to Pensby High School to do his bit. And but from what I saw, and I might be wrong here, that whatever the media picked up and did their sound bit on national, local TV or whatever, there was nothing there about education. And you went to a school. Now, that may have been the agenda at that particular day was immigration, so we ended up talking about it. But I thought he didn't. I mean, that might have been managed, not against him, as it were. Maybe he did speak about it.
He did answer Jane Golan's question.
Did he?
On education.
Right.
But I think, at the end of the day, it's the media who pass the message on. So it seemed not to be apparent to the media. And I often think whether or not politics are playing to the media, not the audience, us, the electorate.
Yeah,
because the electorate, not the electorate, but those, in society.
But it's almost the media and Nigel Farage to some extent, and the SNP have set the agenda in a way for the election. It's the economy, it's the NHS, it's immigration, and those are the main three things. But actually,
It used to be
it used to be a lot about education, but nobody's speaking about.
Very
which I
little
thought-
said about sustainability, though, is it really? Which is a shame. That's kind of gone a bit of a death, hasn't it? But they've still got these targets.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, isn't it interesting? Because the whole thing should be under the banner of sustainability. Because if you look at an economy, is that sustainable? Question mark. Is immigration part of the economy? Is that sustainable? Question mark. Health, aging population? Question mark. Education? Question mark. So it should be about sustainability. So isn't it interesting that they're avoiding those sort of terminology? Because what is the sustainability, if there is any?
Well, sustainability in its purest sense, in terms of
broadly.
I'm saying the sustainability that I feel is not being addressed is sustainability in its purest sense, in terms of the finite amount of resources that we have and how we're using them.
That's right. You could broaden that to economy. You could broaden that to everything.
But you were saying that you've heard less from the Green Party here. In other parts of the country, actually, it's the first time we've seen Greens on the national stage, and they're hearing more from them. Is that something you're picking up at all, or is that being dwarfed by the fact there's less activity from the Greens here?
Definitely appears to be less activity from the Greens this election.
But they're more prominent nationally, don't they?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you know what the Greens would do if they had power?
Scrap trident.
Scrap trident, yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Scrap what, sorry?
Scrap
Trident. Not that trident. That goes up.
A lot around care of the
Elderly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems to be prominent.
Okay.
Can I just have one last question? If you were here in 5 years' time, and you and your family, who do you think you would be better off and happier if you're looking back 5 years and who won the election, and it does last 5 years, which party do you think would deliver for you and your family and your standard of living and your environment? Which includes things
It's odd because I'm going to vote Labour, but I've got a feeling that if I voted UKIP, I would be in a better position in 5 years' time. So whether or not I'm being faithful to myself,
I
It's an
personally
interesting
wish
one,
we
isn't
could
it?
have a combination. We could pick out the best bits from each
Really
one.
nice. It would be really nice if they could actually
Do a-
unite
yeah.
and, you know, and take the best bits of all
Yeah.
their policies,
Yeah.
because they all have something
When
good
you
to
actually
say.
look at
I reckon 30 questions, 7-part Likert scale, so you do have the I do not know, and let that be quantitatively analysed,
Yeah.
and then
That's
there
what
you
we
go.
go for.
Do away with the rest of the parties, form one government, and govern Britain.
Yeah.
The likelihood is, because it's probably safer around Conservatives,
Yeah.
but whether they can move it from a technical recovery into an absolute recovery is very, very questionable indeed.
But I suppose what hasn't come across is anybody feeling any sense that public services are on the edge of breaking down.
Oh, yeah, that's
I
what I
work in
find.
the public
Yeah.
sector,
Yeah.
and you know, and I feel a bit as if like if I vote Conservative, it's a bit like turkey voting for Christmas, because you know it's going to be
That's
more
how I feel.
cuts.
Yeah.
But I've got a 14-year-old daughter, and I just think that, you know, I have to think of her future as well. And while the economy is stalled, and while, you know, we haven't got growth, then her future is going to be very uncertain. And you know, and I think sometimes you have to go through the pain just to actually maybe, you know, a few years down the line have a better future.
That's valid though about the public services. There's no way with ageing populations and growing populations, education, health, policing, etc., roads can be sustained unless you spend money on them really, or you do something else, which is you reduce public policy involvement in all these areas. And it's definitely happening in education. People in the Wirral, they're trying to move out of the state sector. They're moving toward, they're trying to get into all the different, private schools and what have you. Whether they're for good or for bad, I don't know. But the public services should really be the number one issue in this election.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Why aren't they? Because what they don't really, I suspect it's because they don't really know what they can do about it.
Well, they've cut public services so much, and they're going to carry on
Yeah.
whatever the policies they decide, that should go in. They're not going to be the resources in order to deliver it.
Isn't it more honest though to say, look, we've got an ageing population.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at health, in microscope and to health, you look at that.
But that's what it's doing in this area. That's my very point. That because this area tends to have a socio-economic catchment area of elderly people who have their own needs. So if you're 1 in 3 and you need help in terms of mental health, I've had it from the practice manager at the concourse that funding isn't necessarily pushed in that direction to the point of need.
Right.
And it's leg ulcers rock, mental health's pretty not
So really then, this thing we keep on going back to, which is a bit of honesty, get away from spirit, because unless you're honest, you cannot even begin to shape public policy.
Absolutely.
Did everyone see the programme about how the National Health Service, how they spend their money?
Yes, that was very
And so it would
interesting.
give different people's condition and so on. You chose, whether you felt that they should receive £100,000 up, and one
It costed it all out,
It
didn't
was
it,
all
on how
costed
much
out, yeah.
was
And
spent
then what
on
that
each
meant,
particular-
to the rest of the NHS. So that
What it
would have
buy.
delivered or would buy
Yeah.
X amount.
So I would say what would be more important? You've got somebody who is suicidal and needs help, or someone who's got a broken wrist. Yeah,
It wasn't
I know.
quite like that. This was more.
If you look at that broken wrist fixed pretty quickly, though, you probably feel suicidal.
This was more about your drug expenditure. It's also about some very expensive treatment, possibly overseas, and paying for that treatment overseas for their parents to go and a child to go, or delivering a drug to maybe considered a lesser condition and
Someone like
somebody on dialysis, for instance.
yeah,
How much that would cost
Yeah.
to
So it
pay
was,
for that.
it was a comparable.
like a cost benefit
These are the
analysis.
decisions that are having to be made, and
Yeah.
it was put into
It
the
was very
home.
interesting.
It was
actually.
really
It
interesting.
did really bring it home to you,
Yeah.
the strain that the NHS is under, and the fact that
The
it's
strain
just
of the
simply isn't
local-
sustainable at the moment.
The regional authority, the regional decisions as well.
Do you think we're getting a debate on NHS? Ditto education, others policing, that
Defence.
can offer defence, that can offer a genuine route to
that
solution.
I think that
Are
they
we having a
debate it
debate?
around endlessly, but they don't actually seem to come to any conclusion.
Right, so do you think they're being honest with debate? Are they being robust enough with debate?
Well,
'Cause you've got to
that's
be
another issue, isn't it? I mean, you know,
I don't
think
know,
that-
you see.
We only get the top figures. We never
Yeah.
ever get to see you as a electoral, you know, vote. You don't get the facts and figures. You wouldn't sign on a piece of paper a contract without knowing full facts and figures. You don't sign your mortgage without knowing the terms and conditions. We don't really know unless someone really studies manifestos and has the fiscal background. You don't know what you're signing up to. So a lot of us are going in blind and with an element of trust. So you trust in that leader who's portraying that, yeah, that we are honestly going to do this. But they all surface level, where's the money coming from? Because it's going to affect someone else. We've all got our own issues, which will be affected in some way or other, good or bad.
But you've got to have a debate. You can't. If you,
But there's so many areas
they're all
to debate.
third rate.
That's a
To my
problem.
mind, they're all third raters, tops. But unless we have the mechanisms in order to have robust debate and therefore democracy, you're not going to get yourself into situations. You're only going to get yourself in situations where you cannot understand why we've gone from this to this to this. You know, all of the media have to. They're quite robust in some respects, but they need to be honest. They need to say, look, you know, for example, whether this is true, if we have an ageing population, how does that impact tremendously on health services, other services, and what does that mean as an upshot? What does that mean for a society?
What does it mean for our children? You know, I do think, are they going to pay for the agents that, you know, when we all expect to get a pension, or we all expect to, you know.
I don't.
No, I mean, even.
Well, if I do,
When
it
you've
won't
got
be
to
what they
work,
say.
you've got to work to be 70
On
to
that
get it
very
Yeah,
cheery
well
note, delightful that this has been. Thank you all so much for bearing with me on the superheroes. And I think you're all much better at drawing than you think you are. But thank you very much, and you are free to go.